HamiltonRadio.net, what up? What's good? Say Q, Drew Smitty, Ron Committee, so unique is back. Yeah. West Trent. Yeah. Hip-hop lives through me, it came from the streets. Rhythm with a breakbeat, prove who can MC. Metaphors and techniques made you have to check me. My dialect connect peace, lyrics that are wet sheets. Spit it raw and sexy, shorty wanna F me. Swerving to the left beat, on the grind and stress free. Bust a shot of dead beef, hit him in the headpiece. Warned you not to test me, ice bars is Gretzky. Slide it in your wifey, all the women love me. A slight touch of grimy, slice of half a dime piece. Knuckle rapper 5-piece, high looking Chinese. Muay Thai IP, vivid on your screen, eyes wide like high beams, too low to find me. Switching lanes like car thieves, Starsky and Hush trees. Roll up the best weed, firewater Hennessy, ginseng for energy. Holla mommy Ben Aki, he play hits. HamiltonRadio.net station, the Munk Show, I'm tuned in. He play hits. HamiltonRadio.net station, the Munk Show, I'm tuned in. He play hits. HamiltonRadio.net station, the Munk Show, I'm tuned in. He play hits. HamiltonRadio.net station, the Munk Show, I'm tuned in.
All right, man. What's up, everybody? All right, I'm doing the Black History Month this thing. And I got a couple different people who are going to present. You know, there's a lot of different black inventors that we found out that we had. You know, just being on the Facebook, you be like, damn, I didn't know that. So we'll play some of that tonight. And matter of fact, we just going to get started because I got a few videos I want to play. You know what I'm saying? What was that first one we got queued up over there, man?
Lewis Latimer.
The Lewis Latimer. We're going to start off with Lewis Latimer. Because this brother invented something that we all use today. And I don't think a lot of people know that. You know what I'm saying? You know, the information is out there. A lot of stuff is on YouTube and stuff, you know, but still, sometimes you got to guide the people to go find out. Some people don't, you know, some people don't care, but I think you should care. Knowing that the stuff that you use every day, you know, is being invented by people who've been impressed for so many years and stuff. You got a lot of black inventors that, you know, invented stuff that you wouldn't believe and just didn't get no credit for it. So we're going to try to shed some light on some of the people, you know, for these last couple of weeks. So much going on. You know, we don't forget it's Black History Month. Even when we get the little 28 days, we're going to do something. Nobody else gonna do nothing out there. So, okay. I put I had a little Munk Show thing on my poster, just disappeared. So this is the new live thing. So now it won't let me do it. Yeah, I was trying to put that little link right to my name. All right, we're gonna get to this first video. You got it queued up, Ruby Roo. Ruby Roo. DJ Double R. He go hook it up over there, and we're gonna get right to it. Be right back with you on the Munk Show.
Lewis Latimer. Lewis Latimer was born September 4th, 1848 in Chelsea, Massachusetts, to runaway slaves. He served in the United States Navy for the Union and received an honorable discharge on July 3rd, 1865. While working in Boston as an office boy for a patent law firm, he taught himself mechanical drawing and mastered the art of drawing a scale. As Latimer's talents was becoming noticed, he was promoted from the position of office boy with a pay of $3 a week to the head of draftsman earning $20 a week. In 1873, he became married to Mary Wilson, and a year later, Latimer and W.C. Brown co-invented an improvement on the train water closet. 2 years later, Alexander Graham Bell needed a design drawing for a patent application for the telephone. With consistent labor and long working hours, Latimer was able to complete the application, which was turned in on February 14, 1876, hours before Elisha Gray could submit his design for a similar device. After relocating to Bridgeport, Connecticut, Lewis Latimer was employed as the assistant manager and draftsman of the U.S. Electric Lighting Company. It was there that Latimer was set to compete against Thomas Edison's light bulb by improving on the filament. He encased the filament in a cardboard, which prevented the carbon from breaking up, therefore extending the life of the light bulb. This allowed it to be placed anywhere. Latimer was responsible for installing the first lighting in New York, Philadelphia, and Montreal. He also oversaw the lighting of rail stations and government buildings extending from America to Canada to even London. Latimer became employed by Thomas Edison in 1890 and began working in the legal department of Edison's Electric Light Company. He served as a chief draftsman and patent specialist. He later authored the most comprehensive book on electric lighting, The Incandescent Electric Lighting, a practical description of the Edison system. Latimer was also designated as one of the charter members of the Edison Pioneers, a group of individuals responsible for the electrical industry. In 1894, Latimer invented the safety elevator, a great improvement for the elevator at that time. His name also holds the patent for the locking racks of hats, coats, and umbrellas. He went on to create a version of the book supporter, allowing books to be arranged on shelves, followed by the apparatus for cooling and disinfecting, a system for keeping rooms more hygienic and climate controlled. Among his many notables, Latimer was also a civil rights activist, pioneer, and a poet. Lewis Latimer passed away on December 11, 1928. However, during his lifetime, he exhibited amazing imagination, skill, and courage, which created a path for others like him to follow. Mr. Lewis Latimer, we proudly stand on your shoulders. For more information, please visit www.ontheshoulders1.com.
Okay, man. We got that next video already ready to go. Yeah. We'll give you a couple different people. That was Lewis Latimer. There was a longer one on him. And I want to like kind of play that right after her, but we're going to go into something else instead. You know. It will give you, like I'm saying, the information's out there, but you just, you know, got to be guided in the direction sometimes. So people like me, you know, I know it's Friday night, everybody partying and stuff like that. But the cool thing about this is you can watch it later on. So, you know what I mean? We you know, we got little upgrades and stuff, you know what I mean? A couple little upgrades and stuff. We're gonna get a little bit, you're gonna be seeing a lot more of that. And I kinda like wonder, maybe we could show the video on that, but I'm gonna blow it up for you anyway. Just really like here so I can see it. You know what I mean? All right, this is 23 minutes. This is Masters of Invention. And you know, I wanted to kind of put the ingenuity out there, like, you know, we have people that created some off the hook stuff, so, and plus I'm kind of like putting it together because I had a little plan, but then once I got to thinking about it, I wanted to do something different, because I wasn't going to use the regular, you know, people that you would see, you know, Martin Luther King, Mary McLeod Bethune, all that, you know what I'm saying? We see them every year. You know, we kind of give you with something different and something that's more heavy impacting because of the fact that we use these items every day when you didn't know that a black person invented it, you know. Matter of fact, later on, we're going to get into my man. We had Lewis Latimer, but we got another man that invented this, the way to use the cell phone. With a cell phone, period. You know what I'm saying? Black dude did that. I did see that. I got to find that video. So we'll try to look for that. But up next is Masters of Invention. That's where all that motherfucking video, man.
Country, asking them to identify any Hello, I'm Glenn Turman. African Americans have long been acknowledged for their creativity and genius in theater, dance, music, art, and literature. But there's another kind of creative contribution African Americans have made, and that's the art of invention. From the moment you turn a doorknob, flick an on-off switch, start your engine, stop for a traffic light, take an elevator, watch a missile launch, or talk on your cellular phone, you've come into contact with an invention or innovation created by an African American. Since records of inventors' race weren't kept when the U.S. Patent Office was established in 1790, we may never know exactly how many patents were issued to African Americans. Now, probably the person most responsible for gathering information on early black inventors was Henry E. Baker, an assistant U.S. patent officer and graduate of Harvard Law School. Baker dedicated his life to uncovering and publicizing the contributions of black inventors. Under the auspices of the U.S. Patent Office, Baker sent out letters to lawyers throughout the country asking them to identify any black inventors they may have filed patent papers for. In 1913, patent lawyer B.J. Nolan of Chattanooga, Tennessee wrote, "I never knew a Negro to even suggest an idea, much less try to patent one. And I've dealt with them Negroes all my life." Baker didn't let letters like that discourage him. By the time of his death, his work produced 4 massive volumes and uncovered some remarkable inventions patented by black men and women. In 18th century America, one black man of inventive genius made a name for himself, a tobacco farmer named Benjamin Banneker. He resembled Benjamin Franklin in stature and was one of the country's most brilliant mathematicians. Inspired by the theories of Copernicus, Banneker became a self-taught astronomer at age 60. In 1754, at the age of 24, Banneker made a clock entirely out of wood, which remained accurate for nearly 40 years. He was one of the surveyors in the planning of Washington, D.C., and a scientific genius. With borrowed books and instruments, Banneker taught himself the fundamentals of astronomy, keeping a journal of his calculations. Besides predicting the weather and seasons, Banneker used his almanac to extol the achievements of blacks beyond himself. When he included a poem written by the renowned poet Phyllis Wheatley, he wrote, "Africans and their descendants are capable of attaining a degree of eminence in the liberal sciences. Benjamin is not the only proof." Wheatley's poem perhaps best echoed their feelings about the injustices of human bondage.
Should you wonder from whence my love of freedom sprung? I young and live by seeming cruel fate was snatched from Africa, fancy happy seat. What pains excruciating must molest, what sorrows labor in my parents' breast. Steeled was that, should and by no misery moved, that from a father sees this babe beloved. Such my case. And can I then but pray, others may never feel tyrannic sway.
Just as Banneker loved the stars, James Forten of Philadelphia loved the sea. One of the original abolitionist leaders, Forten invented a device around 1800 that aided in the control of sails on ships. He amassed a fortune, built his own sail factory, and worked on the Underground Railroad helping slaves to escape. There's an African proverb that says, "As the wound inflames the finger, so thought inflames the mind." And despite their circumstances, slaves created a number of inventions before the Civil War. Until they were considered citizens, however, African-American inventors were ignored, prohibited from securing patents, or slave owners took credit for their discoveries. Such was almost the case of Benjamin Montgomery of Virginia, who invented a propeller specifically designed for river steamboats. Montgomery was owned by Joseph Davis, brother of Jefferson Davis, the future president of the Confederacy. Now, when the brothers tried to patent Montgomery's propeller, Attorney General Jeremiah S. Black enacted a decision in 1858 that prohibited owners from doing so. So, as a result, any slave invention during the next 12 years went undocumented. Before the Civil War, a free black man named Norbert Rilot from New Orleans revolutionized the sugar industry in a bittersweet story. Born on a plantation and educated as an engineer in Paris, Rilot gave the world its biggest economic sugar fix. Making sugar by the slow, dangerous kettle method inspired Rilot to find a better way. And on August 26, 1843, he received his first patent for his sugar refining process, or the multiple effect vacuum evaporator, which turns sugar juice into a fine grade of white sugar crystals. Rilot became a wealthy and influential man in New Orleans, but was still subjected to oppressive race laws. When he was told he'd have to carry a pass to move about the city, Rilot decided to leave America forever and return to France. France's gain was surely America's loss. Industrial growth in America was tremendous, and both black and white inventors were responsible. By 1870, the patent restraints for blacks had been lifted and signaled an explosion of inventions to come. One of those inventions was from Jan Metzelliger, a black immigrant from New Guinea who settled in Lynn, Massachusetts, the center of the shoemaking industry. Now, his invention revolutionized the shoe manufacturing industry and created thousands of jobs. Prior to Metzelliger's invention, connecting the leather uppers to the soles of the shoes was done by hand, a process called lasting. He wanted to make shoes affordable for everyone, and after working secretly at night for 10 years, Metzelliger created a lasting machine that could turn out a complete shoe. His drawings, however, were so complex, the U.S. Patent Office couldn't believe the machine worked, so an official was sent to inspect it. And on March 20th, 1883, Jan Metzelliger was issued his first patent. Metzelliger tried unsuccessfully to market his invention himself and sold the rights to his invention for stock in a new company. He took to performing in plays, but died a forgotten inventor before he reaped any financial rewards. Metzelliger's recognition finally came a century later when a postage stamp commemorated his name and a bridge in his honor was dedicated in his hometown of Lynn, Massachusetts. With the introduction of Henry Ford's Model T, cars began to move horses aside, and America shifted full speed ahead. Between 1871 and 1900, more than 300 patents were awarded for inventions and innovations by blacks. Inventors have become a part of American folklore as well. If you've ever heard the phrase, the real McCoy, you know what I mean. The phrase was coined for a master inventor, Elijah McCoy, who ultimately patented over 60 lubricating systems, including an air brake system for railroads. In the late 1870s, most machines, including trains, had to be stopped every time they needed oil. The oilman would walk the length of the train and oil all the moving parts. McCoy devised a method for oiling machinery as it was running. And on June 23rd, 1872, he received a patent for the lubricating cup. McCoy believed in producing quality work. As a result, his lubricating system was used on locomotives, machinery in factories, and on engines of transatlantic steamships around the world. McCoy's system was so effective that buyers of new machinery would ask the sellers, "Does the equipment have the real McCoy?" If it didn't, they wouldn't buy it. So if you want the genuine article, the real thing, just ask for the real McCoy. In a country that still had the feeling that the oppressed race had contributed little or nothing, African Americans began to catch the public's attention. Exhibits at the 1895 Atlanta Exposition and the 1907 Jamestown Exposition gave black inventors the opportunity to showcase their accomplishments. On the flip side, in 1896, the Supreme Court ruled in Plessy versus Ferguson that separate but equal facilities for whites and blacks was constitutional, which marked the beginning of Jim Crow laws and legalized segregation. Despite the trials and stresses of life, people enjoyed their recreational time, and hobbies were springboards for inventions. Now, take, for instance, dentist George Grant. He loved playing golf. And on December 12, 1899, he received a patent for an object that golfers have been using ever since: the golf tee. Before Grant's inventions, players would form cone-shaped mounds of sand with their fingers on which the ball sat. Now today, this tooth-shaped invention has improved many a golfer's drive. Just as today's technological revolution celebrates the super information highway, the second half of the 19th century centered around its new age power: electricity. In every school book, the name of Thomas Edison and Alexander Bell are imprinted in our minds. But recognition for their distinguished African-American colleagues, Granville T. Woods and Lewis Latimer, is long overdue.
By the time black people have extra
Lewis Latimer was a self-made man who became a pioneer in the development of electricity. He drafted the original plans for Alexander Bell's telephone and made significant contributions to the success of both Thomas Edison and Hiram Maxim, Edison's competitor. While employed with Maxim, Latimer perfected Edison's light bulb by making improvements in the incandescent electric lamp in 1882. He then supervised the installation of electric lighting systems in major cities around the world. Known as the Black Edison, Granville T. Woods was an electromechanical genius. Like Edison, Woods was years ahead of his time and founded his own company to research, manufacture, and market his electrical inventions. His versatility resulted in 65 patents relating to electricity, from electric railway cars to an incubator for hatching chicken eggs. When the first subway rail pulled into Grand Central Station, Granville Woods had made his mark.
Yes, we eat weird.
In 1901, he was issued a patent for the third rail system, still used in subways today around the world. Concerned about the number of train collisions, Woods developed a railway telegraphy system, which improved train safety by letting the train engineer know how close his train was to others. And in 1899, he received a patent for an amusement apparatus. Woods' two-track ride, originally invented for indoors and outdoors, evolved into what we now know as the roller coaster. Woods' inventions caught the public's attention when he won 2 legal disputes against Edison. In fact, when Edison lost the second action, he asked Woods to come work for him. But Woods, whose patents were bought by General Electric, Bell Telephone, and Westinghouse, decided to remain on his own. By the turn of the century, a surge of inventions was well underway. African Americans received an estimated 1,000 patents by 1913 in nearly every field of industrial arts, machinery, transportation, agricultural, and electrical devices. Garrett Morgan was constantly thinking about the future. He'd say, if it's in a book, you can do it. If it's not, then use your imagination. And despite having only a 6th grade education, Morgan's inventions, the traffic signal and the gas mask, became 2 of the world's most significant safety-related devices. On July 25th, 1960, an explosion rocked a mining site. 3 rescue teams died attempting to save the miners. But Garrett Morgan, wearing an invention he called a breathing apparatus, entered the toxic mine and pulled the surviving men to safety. Morgan's invention came to rescue again during World War I, when British and U.S. troops needed gas masks to fend off Germans' newest weapon, poison gas. Back in the States, city traffic was hazardous. Morgan witnessed a terrible accident and developed the first illuminated traffic signal which alerted drivers to proceed with caution. Garrett Morgan received his patent on November 20th, 1923, which he later sold to the General Electric Company for $40,000. His system was used until it was replaced with the automatic electric traffic lights we have today. Like inventors, African-American scientists have made phenomenal contributions as well. Grammy-winning composer Stevie Wonder even wrote a song about one of them, Dr. George Washington Carver, best known for his work with the peanut and its 300 or more derivative products, which include instant coffee, bleach, tan remover, metal polish, paper, ink, shaving cream, rubbing oil, linoleum, paint, and plastic. Carver was a man on a mission. A scientific genius, Carver felt a deep affinity for farmers and convinced them to grow diversified crops, such as peanuts, pecan, and sweet potatoes, in place of one crop, cotton, to re-nourish their soils. A deeply spiritual man, Carver also obtained fame as an artist. His varied interests led to his close friendship with Henry Ford, who shared his fascination with synthetic rubber. Carver's research as an agricultural chemist won him international acclaim. When Carver died in 1943 in Alabama, the governor and crowds of people came to honor him. The U.S. Postal Service issued a memorial stamp for the man who was dubbed the Savior of the South. Madam C.J. Walker became a millionaire as a result of her hair care products. And although she didn't patent any of her products, she was a pioneer entrepreneur and an inspiration to women around the world. In 1885, Sarah Good received her patent for a folding bed, a forerunner of today's sofa bed. Sarah Boone was issued a patent in 1892 for her improvement to the ironing board. Alice H. Parker wanted to warm each room in her building with centralized heating and received a patent for her improvement on the heating furnace in 1919. And Harriet Bradbury patented her torpedo discharger for submarines in 1943. Ellen Elgin, who patented a financially successful clothes wringer in the 1880s, sold her device to an agent for $18. Elgin's feelings mirrored a long-standing practice of black inventors, both men and women, who chose to sell their inventions to whites or white-controlled corporations for fear of their inventions losing value if their true identities were known. The contributions inventors and scientists have made is tremendous. As we look to the future, there are 2 African Americans who are continuing that creativity. Take the case of ophthalmologist Dr. Patricia Bath, who in 1988 received a patent for the laser phaco probe. Now, that's a device that removes cataracts. Dr. Bath holds the patents for her inventions in Japan, Canada, Europe, and the United States.
I was once referred a very difficult and challenging case of a blind woman. I spent many nights thinking and planning her surgery. And then, by divine inspiration, an idea occurred of a new way to remove cataracts using a fiber-guided laser. I realized that this technique was a great improvement in cataract surgery. I then conducted some research studies in Berlin, and it was at that point that I developed my first of many prototypes of the laser phaco probe. As a black woman surgeon, it's very difficult to overcome some of the stereotypic impressions of male colleagues. When I joined the faculty of UCLA in 1974, I was the first woman faculty member in the Department of Ophthalmology. I imagine my colleagues did not feel that I could be equally gifted and skilled. However, I now accept the challenge because it made me struggle to be the very best.
Engineer Lonnie Johnson strikes a chord of success in two very different worlds with his invention.
I've been an inventor all my life. As long as I can remember, I have been tinkering and making things work. So I decided to do a water gun, or something simple that most people could appreciate, and use the revenues from that invention as a stepping stone to allow me to do some of my more challenging ideas. The role of the inventor is like the barnstormer, the guy who comes in and shakes everything up and is able to take on the big boys.
From telephones to electric street lighting, from refrigerated trucks to automatic transmissions, and from artificial heart stimulators to space shuttle retrieval arms, African-American inventors have triumphed over adverse conditions and continue to contribute to scientific and innovative discoveries that benefit the global community. We've met just a few of the men and women who are making it happen. We hope that you will visit your local library and continue the journey.
Give me some dragon on the
Receive an education in the history of African people. Yet I thought that I've educated myself down through those period of time.
Okay, this is over here with me. That's Dr. Yosef Ben Johannan. I was gonna play that. That's a little long, but we're gonna get into another one. You know what I mean? Because we're gonna keep it moving on that. What's that next video we had? We had Tuna. All right, oh man, I just had to go deep on y'all. I had to go deep on y'all. So we gonna get into some Phil Valentine, man. That's my man's right there. You know that guy's a great teacher. And, you know, you might be, you know, you sliding down, scrolling, Friday night scrolling, catch a little something. You might be in the crib, Blaze. You know, might catch something you ain't never seen before for the ones that like learning stuff. You know what I mean? You know, I got to kind of put something out there for that. Let's see. I got to play my little stuff.
Escobar was dead.
Play my little stuff, man. You know what I'm saying? Getting ready. We getting that, video ready over there, man. We getting it ready. Well, in the meantime, I guess I'll just play my joint. And then he's getting that ready. And we getting the video ready. You know, we gotta cue it up and all that type of stuff. You know, I'm trying to hit you with some heavy stuff. You know what I mean? So I play some of these lectures and stuff like that instead of. You know, it get right to the point with it.
Awful.
You know what I'm saying?
The raw egg test. Let me prove it.
Let's get deep, man, because I know this brother right here, he be dropping science. And plus, I love promoting this type of stuff. So, you know, we all into this type of stuff. You know what I mean? And tune in. You know, it's on the Munk Show, Hamilton Radio. You ready? All right. It's Dr. Phil Valentine. Black people have extraterrestrial DNA.
I can decipher what they have gathered together by their observations, and then based on my expertise of studying the unseen realm and all the laws that govern the unseen realm, I can speak to you about how I have, through what I know, interpreted the data. Well, first and foremost, the science of genetics is another form of fragmentation of the study of the whole biospiritual body that we call the human being. More and more, as we advance in the study of man, humanity, we begin to fraction and fragment the physical temple into ever more microscopic venues. And we have come now to the phase of knowledge where man is now seen as an atomic structure created or formed into a molecular structure, which in turn is formed into a cellular structure, and from that cellular structure comes out into the different forms of intelligence that we see walking the planet from the DNA. All of the different quote-unquote discoveries that we're getting today is based upon the perception that present man has of himself. All of the present church or religious venue of science. Science is a form of religion. Based upon, just like politics is a form of religion. Religion is a form of religious thinking. It is the marginalization of thought or certain abstracts into a formula. And then that formula is meshed over, and you take a piece, I'll take a piece, and everybody has a little piece, and they'll see what they can extract or mold out of that little piece. Genetics is simply one of the branches of the mold that we're studying. And it's interesting that the more we find out genetically about ourselves, the more we get to that little black box, which no one seems to want to speak about except us, and that is melanin. We speak about DNA because DNA is almost neutral in its context. Everything that has a biological basis has DNA. So does rocks, dirt, everything has some form of DNA structure because it is part and parcel of a living, breathing, sentient, conscious planet. So there is no part of what we live on or what we participate in that is not conscious. Not only of itself, but as itself. So when Brother brought this particular information to us, what happened is that every time there is a new breakthrough in science, and I know that there are other metaphysicians and other spiritual people who know what I'm speaking about, that every time someone comes to us with something new that science has discovered, the occultist, the metaphysician, the one who studies the spirit, already knows what that formula is. We just have not yet interpreted the language that they've used to describe what they've discovered. But once we get a chance to look at it for a while, we know, based upon the science of metaphysics and the study of the occult realms that our ancestors have studied, we know what they are touching upon and what they are looking through. So he may hide behind his codes, which probably, if you punch in the letters DNA, you probably get right to him. You have to see that his constant fractionalizing of life is based upon the way that he sees through the prism of his reality. He cannot see or abstractly understand and understand whole beings and whole things. The Caucasoid has a frame of reference that cannot see the wholeness of a thing. Mm-hmm. He may be able to describe the surface of it, but his ability to interface with that thing that he is observing, he does not have the mechanism, the crystalline mechanism necessary for him to access that. Or there are many who have crossed that line by studying ardently and religiously, quote unquote, and fervently with the dark-skinned masters, but they still do not engender the immediacy of the spirit. They have to describe it in abstract forms through their formulas and what they believe they see as we consciously move through ever-evolving stages in the spirit. So every time the spirit becomes more and more evident within each of us, he discovers a little something different or more about himself. But you see, we've already put that into capsulized form as peoples of color around the world through the way we dance, through the way we sing, through the instruments that we create in order to interface with that sound, light, frequency, and vibration that we call the Spirit of God. And I'm doing all of this before we condense into the particulars, because once we do the particulars, we're getting into the white frame of reference. And what I want to do now is to set the groundwork for how we must see and interface with the information. We as metaphysicians and occultists know that every time science discovers something, we know that it's them catching up to the metaphysician, catching up to the spiritualist, catching up to the occultist. There is nothing that he will ever discover that is not already known by the very few peoples who still retain the ancient wisdom knowledge, the ancient wisdom sciences, the mystery science that they talked about in ancient Kemet, the shamanic sciences that they talk about amongst the indigenous people. We already know this. But it is necessary because our children are caught up in this paradigm where everything needs to be fractionalized, torn apart, eviscerated, thrown up into pieces, ripped apart, so that you can see how the little pieces work. That's fine. We'll do that. But we must never lose sight of the fact that with every discovery in his own fragmented way of thinking, we must take that discovery and put it back into the piece so that we see how the whole operates. In that way, we won't end up making machines that tear down whole forests, that rip up the skies and the water. Because he is so estranged from the living beingness of this planet, he can, without any conscience, without any responsibility, do what he's doing to the planet. Because this is the way he sees science. He sees what life is. It's just things for him to rip up and study. Consequences be damned. They'll come later. So I must place into the records that his ever deeper incursion into the study of DNA is his ever deeper incursion into the study of dark matter consciousness, which is the study of melanin. Because melanin is the intelligence that makes the spirit real to us. It is the aspect of spirit that weaves the intent and the will of the Creator into something that we can perceive, something that we interface with through time and space, something that we could say this is this and that is that. It gives us depth, it gives us perception. Melanin differentiates the one spirit into the many things that we witness as reality. So the study of DNA and the study of genius is the study of melanin, of which the peoples, the first peoples of the planet, have the abundance of. You see, when they mine us, when they stole us, when they captured us, when they came over and they tore up our ancestry and destroyed us, they knew they were doing the same thing that their scientists were doing, ripping up the melanin, tearing it apart, taking away its homogeneity, its oneness, and its unified form of the world, and fragmenting it into all these different tribal mentalities that separate us one from the other, have us fighting one another, just like he's been doing. So he's ripped up not only us from the earth and from our places where we were indigenous to, he's ripped up our consciousness. He's torn melanin into shreds. He has miscegenated us so that we no longer can tap into the deeper dark matter consciousness that is our legacy within the central part of our brains. So when you have that richer part of ourselves being torn apart, he attacks melanin through the food he puts into our communities. He attacks our DNA genius and what is to come, how we may lead the planet back into its righteous trajectory towards the consciousness, the creator consciousness. He tears that up with the food that we eat, the juices, the kinds of things he puts into our community. The air we breathe with the chemtrails that you see on a clear day, where clouds that don't look like clouds are up above, with planes spewing poisons like barium and aluminum and genetic material that are supposed to be entrained within your lung tissue to change and mutate you. He is destroying the ability of your melanin to interface with the dark matter consciousness called Eta Carina that is heading in this direction as we speak today. The black God or the dark God that was talked about in Amos in your Bible. Because they said God is not the light, God is the darkness. They said the darkness was existence, and from the darkness came the light. Well, the darkness is returning, and it's making all the scientists afraid because it's about to give forth with a burst of light. Phosphine genius is about to burst forward. And they say that once it happens, the skies of our solar system, our galaxy, will not see any blackness for a period of 7 days. Now, these are written in the holy books, but these books were not holy books for us to bow down and worship to. These books were there for us to study as books of science set down by our ancestors, who spoke about melanin in the Bible, or what became the Bible that we read today, what became the Quran we read today, the Sefer Yetzirah, the Kabbalah. All of these different books that we read today have to do with the return of the darkness, which is the eternal womb, the triple black mother. And right now it's returning. But you see, our melanin, the genius, the DNA that we're about to speak about is fragmented. So I'm going to try and I'm going to attempt to put together certain things, and which is what I've done. When you asked me what it is that you wanted to speak about the 6-strand DNA
series.
The series, the six-strand DNA, the 6 there, I'm going to explain what that means. And the 9-strand DNA series. That has metaphysical ramifications way beyond what their science is revealing to them, or what their own contained mentality will allow them to understand. And this is where the metaphysician has to step in. And this is why Dr. Oyibo is not only so essential to the next phase of consciousness on this planet, but why he is feared by the present structure, the present church of Western scientific thought. So in listening to what it is that you wanted to speak about and hear is global distribution of the DNA series. This is nothing new. This was already known by most of the scientists, because there are books written by the early medical scientists who went to study African peoples, who went to study indigenous peoples to the lands south of the equator, where the people are darker and more richly melanated. And they wrote a series of medical books attesting to the difference between melanated peoples and white peoples, to the point where their apothecaries and their pharmacies created drugs differently because they had a specifically specialized effect on melanated peoples as opposed to white peoples. For instance, white peoples have more metal in their medicines than black people can tolerate. So they made most of their medicines so that they could not interface. They had to put more metal into them because the Caucasoid is so deficient of iron. Whereas peoples of color have a rich uplaying of dark iron. That's why you get your dark, black, richly melanated color, is because of the fact that your face and your body has laid up iron in it. But to see, the problem is you are like an earth without the plants and the soil and the flowers that grow from it. In other words, back in the days, when you had a dark, rich, black earth color, you gave off a greenish, bluish hue. Like you can go today to Senegal and watch those brothers and sisters stand in that sun, and they are so black they shine blue.
That's true.
But people don't know what the secret to that kind of melanin means. And it means that there are times when our people moving through consciousness as the true earth creatures, that at times when we were in the sun, or when we would think a certain emotional thought, one of the chakras would tell us immediately where your thoughts were focused, and you would vibrate that particular color in accordance with your emotions. That's because you were in tune, and your melanin was not disjointed and fragmented. It was connected directly to the interlacing conduits that connected directly to your nervous system. And that nervous system, through its own conduits, connected directly to the etheric body that you had, which is called the breath form, which you commonly call the soul. So your soul, through the nerve estuaries and the electromagnetic wiring in your body, connected you directly to your skin. And the soul had its outward representation in the way that the molecules and the atoms formed you to imitate the triple blackness, because from the blackness came the light, but in order for the light to know itself, it had to be housed back in the blackness. You see? So what happens now, we don't understand what color is. We don't understand the science of melanin, what I call dark matter consciousness. And in thus doing it, we do things unconsciously in the spirit. That's why religion is such a, how do I say this? Such a deep, intoxicating, and addicting substance to dark folks. That is the number one place where they can defer and deter the consciousness of black people by setting up a structure to intercept the true spirit. And the one structure that intercepts the true spirit is religion. The dogma of religion are to take us away from actually interfacing with the true voice of God that will tell you the name of the Creator, because your DNA is linked to your melanin, and your melanin to the pigments on your skin. And that's how you had all these different names for God. Not Jesus. You didn't have these names like Allah. You didn't have all these names. These names came and were fostered upon you because you had names like Unkulunkulu. That was the sound of the cosmic resonance of the drums. And the way Most High spoke to you, so you spoke back the name that was given to you directly. You didn't need a second-hand interpreter to give you a name for God. God already gave you its name wherever you were on the planet, because the name that you called God where you were on this planet was the harmonic frequency necessary to keep the balance of the overall planet in place. So when this Caucasoid came around and began ripping up all of your religious sounds and your music and the way you spoke directly to the Creator, it ripped up and tore apart the planet so much now that it begins to wobble. The planet itself today wobbles because every one of us is calling out somebody named Jesus who never existed.
Never existed. That's correct.
So your melanin can be used to keep you in the prison because it's easily infected with illusion. And that's why we must know ourselves from inside out. And if this is a chance for me to speak more deeply upon what it is we need to do, you know I'm going to actually do my best to be here to speak on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Give thanks. Now, I need to read into the record for everyone some things that I put down very quickly for us to understand or understand around what this DNA situation is and what this whole concentration on genetics and, you know, what's going on with the genetics of disease, and we found a gene for cancer and the gene for leukemia and the gene for that. You can go down to Woolworths and find genes. There's genes in everything biological. But he needs to do that. He needs to think that he is in control, because he is going to poison you with what he finds. He can't do anything good with what he finds. He needs to keep poisoning you, because by your suffering and pathology he lives. Know that the medical system does not exist by your health. It exists based on you being maintained within a pool of pathology.
That's correct.
So his control, his science is to find out what may harm you so that he may stay in control.
Oh, yes.
There is no different, there is no upliftment in his science, because he has completely extricated the principle of the deity of God within all of his science. You cannot find deity in any of his sciences. Therefore, it has to be satanic. So the study of genetics, the study of medicine, the study of all of the biologies that he has is a satanic study, because he does not believe that a divine intelligence operates all things.
Now, if I may ask you a question, if you would prefer just to go completely and I interject questions on the end, I'll try to do that.
Good, but let me put this down, because then the questions may have been answered by what I have put down here for you. So let me just get some rudimentary things down. Simply put, DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid, makes RNA, ribonucleic acids, which in turn, ribonucleic acids makes proteins. Everybody knows what a protein kind of is. Proteins allow things that are called amino acids to be registered messengers. Okay, so I'll show you what I'm talking about when it comes down to, say, for instance, to the DNA helix. And we'll deal with the DNA helix like this, because this is the simplest waveform that we can see. This is not, let me just say this first. DNA is not what you think it is. This is simply an abstract model by what science has done to simplify what it is. Okay, that's all it is. So when they show you this fancy model with all these little things all over it, that's a clinical model, because they don't all look like this. DNA is simply a wave energy pattern crystallized into a gelatinous mold. Okay? And the reason why it seems like this is because we're stuck. And I'm going to get into that. So DNA makes RNA, RNA makes proteins, and proteins allow the amino acids to be the registered messengers. Each amino acid is different and thus has a different geometric shape specific to its duty. So amino acids are little messengers that attach themselves along the DNA. And I'm doing it extremely simplistic, because if you get in contact with this guy, he will start getting into the church of his own scientific churches. Huge amount of gobbledygook that simply doesn't do anything, because it's their own language. It's their own way of estranging you from what's going on inside of you. So, each amino is a microprocessor. A microprocessor of light signature frequencies. Okay? So, when you eat, or when you breathe in, or when you drink water, or when you take in anything that's real food, the breaking down of substances, especially the stuff that you breathe, essentially comes from what your environment gives to you in the form of a breath. So as you breathe in, or as you eat in, certain things become digested, not only in the lungs, but in the stomach and everywhere around you. Even knowledge and the sitting and learning is a form of digestion, which creates a certain type of etheric amino acid that is not yet detected by them.
That's correct.
Okay, so I already jumped you forward maybe 10 years to what they're going to discover somewhere down the line. But when you breathe in, your alveoli in your lungs acts as condensers and compressors of cosmic solar material that is in the air that you breathe. Now, a lot of people say, well, it's in the air. How can I don't see it? Well, you can tell that air is a form of atmosphere, or almost like a watery kind of atmosphere. If you would put your hand outside a car, for instance, and you feel that resistance as you're moving through it, and you can do this, you feel it. There's something actually feeling against my hand. Well, you're like a fish in a bowl, but you are in a more refined atmosphere. You see? So in this atmosphere is a whole other universe. You're living in a terrarium, an open terrarium or open aquarium, with a kind of water that's so refined that this is the way that you breathe. Like the fish breathes the deeper and more condensed form of this same thing. You see? So when you breathe in what are called etheric materials, solar materials that condense to become your etheric amino acids. But the food you eat is a denser form of the same thing. So as you break down food that essentially has signatures within them. The enzymes, the proteins, and the fats, and all the different types of glycerides, whatever it is that you have inside of that food, begins to break down to make certain proteins and sugars that begin to attach themselves along the DNA. Now, this DNA has these little signatures here because through your body every day, through your body, there are waveforms, light waveforms that are constantly bombarding through your body, more refined, giving you information. And that information that's coming from the outside in the form of light and in the form of your emotions and the form of your thought processes and the form of the electrical magnetic energies in your nerves are passing through the DNA as well. Okay? Now, each amino is a microprocessor of light signature frequencies. It's an antenna for the reception of light codes. Now, let me be very clear about that. Light codes are essentially coming from the sun, but it's also coming from all of what you call stars, coming from constellations. The 12, of course, you know, being the zodiac. Each zodiac has a specific space wherein this world spins. There are 12 of them around us, and we're inside of that. And everywhere we go, they are positioned in different areas as we travel around this and the sun itself. So we're inside this light fixtures. Just like this light is beaming on me, that would be Aquarius. One behind me would be Leo, or all of these. So we're inside of these 12 light fixtures, and behind them there are 12 or 200 more. So we're getting all these refined form of lights. These coming together and interfacing with one another constitute the light codes that hit us finally. Okay? And as the light is hitting us, we're breathing in the residuals of those light particles that are given off. And we're getting information and messages. So, these proteins and these amino acids are micro chakras, and I'll explain all of that, all connected to the 7 primary chakras. Each microprocessor amino has a code combination. Each has a 3-letter code. So you can imagine now that the microprocessor aminos has a 3-letter code. And we're going to get into showing you how, you can just cut this part right off. A 3-letter code. These are chemical codes used to articulate different combinations of carbon, melanin, hydrogen, melanin, oxygen, melanin, and nitrogen, melanin, that they collectively go into the constitution of aminos created to receive specific light code instructions. There are 20 known light code antenna processors presently identified by Western medical science. 20 known antennae that define the biocosmic temple we call the human body. The human genetic code is comprised of 64 possible code variations, what they call codons. Now, if you know anything about the ancient I Ching, what they call the ancient Chinese way of dealing with reading, I, and then it's called I and then CHING, there are 64 different combinations that you could throw of the coins that they give to you. And those 64 combinations of 3 are directly linked to how the code. So if you know how to do E King, you can judge what is going on in the human condition based upon your sympathy with the energies of the planet. You can throw those E King coins, 4 E King coins or the 3 E King coins, depending on what system you use. You can throw those E King coins and read what's happening to you and interface, because all 64 possibilities have a code next to them that our ancient ancestors wrote down. Okay? And they're linked to the so-called DNA. Now, the human genetic code is comprised of 64 possible code variations. It is these 64 variations that represent the limit or the wall of our perception for Western science. And this 64 code variations that I explained is to the Western science a complete mystery. There is nothing beyond it, because the present perception of humanity and science cannot go beyond the 64 coded wall. It's like 64 bricks to this particular wall that they cannot see beyond. The mystery is that there are 64 possibilities, but only 20 light code antenna keys turned on and are in working order. So, if we know that there are only 20 possible variations within the chemical codes for aminos, and there are 64 possible code variations, it means that 44 code variations that would then link us up to a higher reality within ourselves are missing. Now, here's this man coming along to say that in the southern regions of Africa, below the equator, right now, at this point, there are evidences of people that are supposed to be primitive. Primitive meaning first, but to them, primitive meaning idiotic and savage. But not understanding that these people hold on to the primary code keys that humanity had when they first fell out of spirit. If they found 9, understand that there are 3 that's only missing from them, and 6 missing from them. Because the first stages of being able to climb out of the present perceptual paradigm is to link up to the 12 DNA series. He only got to 9. And we're going to explain what that means. So here we have a problem with the amino sequence. Let's just use one amino acid, the amino acid leucine. L-E-U-C-I-N-E. Now, the amino acid leucine reveals something very deeply in us. I mean, it shows something that they have found out in us. And it shows something that we as metaphysicians have been trying to tell people for a long time, the occultists, the shamans have been telling people, we are locked down. We can't see beyond the present perception because we have refused to release it. And religion is that lock, because it does not explain the spirit. It tells you to believe. But when you believe, it means that you have surrendered your critical thinking and your reasoning mind to accept something based upon what somebody else has said, not first-hand experience. Here's the problem. This society, Western society, is not based in first-hand experiences. Western society is based on vicarious experiences, which means we go to movies, TVs, we go to different shows to see other people enjoy first-hand experiences with us.
That's true.
So a second-hand experience does not allow for certain parts of our bodies to develop. It does not allow for certain consciousness, cellular consciousness to be awakened. Because when you take away first-hand experience, you take away the soul's ability to interface with the moment on an organic level and thus traps the spirit or the soul in a paradigm always looking for itself, which is a first-hand experience with itself. So now you have a creature who is living completely by vicarious experiences. Okay, go to church, come to the preacher will strike up the band's music tells you sing these songs trigger a vicarious experience in you. You now, based on the programming, are told that Jesus is doing that to you, but you're doing it to yourself. Correct. And you've accepted the programming that somebody is doing this for you. I'm feeling Jesus because why? The preacher says that that feeling that you're feeling while you're in this place is Jesus.
That's correct.
But you don't understand that he is using your own spirituality, your own inheritance of the Spirit.
That's correct.
And spending your inheritance by keeping you high on ignorance. So understand now that what I'm trying to say is that at this present time, the present amino acid structure
All right.
that
Not sure what to say about
studying
that one. Thank you, Ann.
is simply based upon a vehicle that is stuck in its own ignorance. As soon as you awaken this vehicle, this entity creature, all of these codes will change. In the twinkling of an eye, didn't the Bible say? That's correct. But you can't do that if you keep the eyes blind and the twinkle out of them.
That's right.
Yes. See? And the knowledge of oneself puts the twinkle back into one's eyes. But understand this. Now, the aminoleucine looks like this. UUA. These are the way that they are set up in sequence. UUA, UUG, and these are the way the proteins are set up. The protein aminos are set up. CUU, CUC, CUA, and CUG. Now, if you're looking at it, we have 6 completely different chemical combinations, but they all still add up. These 6 different completely chemical combinations. These are 6 completely different chemical combinations for amino acids, but they all add up to leucine. Which means, and this is happening throughout the whole DNA helix, which means that humanity is stuck or locked down in a consciousness of redundancy. The consciousness redundancy that we are presently locked down in means that we can't see to the next phase of our development in the journey of life. And what has happened for the last 2,000 years is that a force has been placed upon us, has been imposed upon us. We have been forced into this reality to believe something that you don't understand. And you know what Stevie said? If you believe in things you don't understand, you suffer. Superstition ain't the way. And what is religion? But superstition. Overstand and understand that our redundancy, the reason why we are continuing to be at this pace, constantly suffering as peoples of color, is because we have played into the illusion of ourselves. We have adopted an alien perception of reality. We act to give life to this corpse, this Frankenstein that was created on the slab. You know what happened when Frankenstein was awoken. Our electricity, our life force gives life to this Frankenstein monster. And what happened when it got up? It started tearing up the village. So it's our focus of attention to the church, to the politics, to the education system. Those are all the limbs of the Frankenstein monster. The more we give our children over to that, the more energy we give to the Frankenstein monster, and then we turn around and wonder what's happening to our village. Because the children you send into that beast, into that laboratory they call the classroom, comes back as the Frankenstein monster. That's not your child anymore. It's being genetically changed, altered in consciousness. So the monster lives. And the redundancy continues. And you get another a newspaper where another brother is shot, another sister is raped, another child is abandoned. How much longer is this thing going to go on? As long as we continue to think in redundancy, this is continue to happen. And we have now become addicted to our own comfort. Miserable as we are, we still addicted to this semi-comfort that we call reality. If you want to truly change, you have to suffer. Period. If you pull away your electricity and say, I'm not using electricity anymore. If you say, I'm not going down to the Piggly Wiggly, or I'm not going down to the A&S, I'm not going down to any of these things that feed this Frankenstein, you watch this thing come crumbling down like a house of cards. But you got to remember that your Negro preacher, your Negro politician, your Negro educator is there constantly wanting to go and pay homage to the monster, because that's who he's plugged into. I didn't care that Sharpton was speaking at some Democratic National Convention. That ain't going to change Harlem. No. Harlem is dying. Yes. Rangel gave that away.
Yes, he did.
That's your other Negro politician. Yes. They're there to serve the illusion, to serve Dr. Frankenstein. And it's your DNA that's being perverted every day by the way that they're putting their food. They're converting the foods and perverting the foods, and you go in there and eating anything and everything that comes into your community. Correct. And eating is a form of communication. Know that. I spoke about that in my nanogenetic mind control. That when you change the genetics of the food, you teach to the genetics of the human being. Because when the human being consumes that food, it begins to pervert the genetics. So you can genetically mind control somebody without lifting a finger, by simply getting them to eat the food that you're perverting. And your body no longer is going to be the same. The legacy that you have from your genetics, your sperm and your egg, will no longer be the same genetics passed on to that child. And that's why you have so many faggots and homosexuals and lesbians running around today. I know you're mad at me for what I'm saying, but somebody's got to say it. At the end of every civilization, there's one thing common to all of them. Greece, Sumer, Kemet, all of them fell just when homosexuality began to rise. Go back to all of your histories and see if I'm lying. And that's based on perverted genetics. So understand and understand that what we're doing right here is not just floating off the top and putting up theories or what do you call it. This is a science that they will never teach in school. They'll never teach the young genetic student why is there such a redundancy just to one amino acid. Because the redundancy is the effort of the body to find an escape route out of the present condition that it's in. Maybe this combination might do it. No, you did something here to stop this from converting out of or evolving out of. So then it created this one, and then this one. All of it indications of the body trying to find a way out of it, because as a byproduct of life, it is in motion constantly. You stop it with emotion. The one thing about science that they teach you is that science and life and all that lives, all that is science, is about movement and motion. And when you stop motion, you stop life. The motion is also seen in your thinking process. Thought creates motion, because every time you think, you create an atom. Every time you think, you create an atom. See, they don't give you that in school, because they, as a child of the Creator, it means that you are a creator. And as a creator, the first thing created, as you will see by that genius, Dr. Oyibo, was the atom.
Okay, we got one more video up. You know what I'm saying? I hope that hit you home. I know you don't hear that type of talk all day. For those, some people do, but I know for like some of the people invited probably don't hear that type of talk all day. So, you know, I decided to be coming hard. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. What we got here? We got another video. because I'm gonna do this next week too. You know what I'm saying? So I just felt like you know, I had to put something on. You know what I mean? I hope y'all enjoyed yourself. You know, if you have any ideas and things like that, somebody you want to hear, you know, somebody that's probably not on YouTube like that, or maybe they are, and a lot of people don't see the videos, like a black inventor or something like that. You know, send it in. You know, leave it in the comments or something. I'll put it on. But that's supposed to be for next week. That's gonna be for next week because I'm gonna keep this going on to next week. And this next one, cell phone towers in the internet, the carbon filament, all created by black inventors. Couple-minute videos, and I'm gonna take it out on that one. And I'll see y'all later. Thanks for tuning in to the Munk Show. Learn something, goddamn it, shit.
Wow. All right. Not sure what to say about that one. Thank you, Ann. Deb is back now. They changed American history with innovations that left a permanent imprint on society. And Deb is back to tell us about a unique exhibit in KC highlighting African-American inventors.
Yeah, Justin, I have a quick question for you. Did you ever play with the Super Soaker water gun growing up? I think that's actually you right there.
You know, Super Soakers, the garden hose, whatever I could find.
Right. Well, interesting fact, a black engineer by the name of Lonnie Johnson actually invented that. Here he is right there, and I was actually blown away by that fact. Now, there are a lot of African-American inventors out there who may not have household names, but have pretty famous products. Let's take a look at this.
100 exhibits.
I think it's a great experience for all the ages that are here.
Line the floor of the American Jazz Museum.
Our exhibit starts with ancient African culture and works up to the present day to the gentleman named Jesse Russell.
Russell's the reason we can talk on cell phones.
And he developed the formula that makes it possible for all these cell phone towers that you see around the country to be built.
And builders like him, all black inventors, have made some pretty hefty contributions to the industry.
I'm glad that many things were invented by African Americans.
We can thank Emmett McHenry for making room for Facebook, Twitter, even Google.
But he's the guy who invented .com, .edu, .gov, .net.
McHenry didn't get a patent, and his efforts are widely unknown.
There are people who still are given full credit for things that maybe they shouldn't get full credit for.
Like Louis H. Latimer. Thomas Edison is known for inventing the light bulb, but Latimer made it stay bright and stay on.
And he's the guy who invented and got the patent for the filament that Edison eventually used.
The exhibit is only up for one day. It started 15 years ago, and Lamb hopes to rebuild it after relocating to the Midwest.
Now, that was actually at the American Jazz Museum near 18th and Vine. Now, I have ties to one of those inventors. Here he is. Louis Latimer is actually my great-great-great-grandfather. Unfortunately, Justin, I didn't get those genius genes.
I was going to say, now his great-great-great-granddaughter is on the Now KC. That's an even bigger deal, I would say.
Hey, that is awesome, especially because I get to work with you and Wayne and everybody else.
There you go. There you go. Good story. Some cool fun facts there.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Deb. Wow. All right. Not sure what to say about that one. Thank you, Ann. Deb is